Everyone, thank you so much for joining our September Airflow Monthly Town Hall. We have a really exciting agenda ahead for you, so buckle up. Um, we are starting off with as always, our monthly project update this month given by Jed. Then we'll jump into an AIP deep dive on 93 with Jake Roach. Then we have three incredible UI focused PR highlights from this month that I'm very excited to share with you all. And then, as always, I'll jump into my community spotlight. This month will be focusing on Airflow Summit's Online Connect. Yes, Airflow Summit will have an online option this year. I know many of you are very excited about that. So I'll share details on that and how you can join. And then we'll close it out at the end of the hour. If this is your first town hall, a couple housekeeping notes. We don't make any decisions on this call. So anything that's discussed in the chat or, verbally, it needs to be brought to the dev list so that final decisions can be made. And as always, I do record all of these calls and post them to the Apache Airflow YouTube. So if you're ever looking for any town halls, you can go there and see the recording. I also share them to the dev list and in the Airflow or in the town hall channel in Airflow Slack as well. So with that, I will pass it over to Jed, member of our PMC, who's going to run you through a quick little update on where the Airflow project is.
Cool, let's do it. Yeah, I saw 10 minutes down for me. I'm hoping it won't take that long, but hey. So yeah, next slide, please. So yeah, it was a good month on a releases front. We ended up releasing 304, 305, and 306 in August. 305, unfortunately, was not long for the world that we ended up having to yank that one. We also had two of our normal provider batches that got released. So yeah, pretty exciting stuff there. If we go to the next slide. Thank you. So I just wanted to post this because I thought it was interesting. Our dev list activity is high and sustained high. Makes it a little hard to summarize actually, because there's a lot of threads that are happening. So next slide, please. But I'm going to just try to cover, I think, the things that are noteworthy, right? I'm not going to go into any depth here. So if any of this resonates with you, I welcome you to go join the dev list and hop in, read the threads, and contribute. So first up, a very important topic is, do we call it all DAG uppercase, DAG with a capital D, or all lowercase DAG? There's a lot of opinions on this one. I think we may be narrowing in on the middle option. That seems to be kind of the leaning consensus at the moment. But if you have opinions, now's the time. On our prod Docker images, we've actually switched away from using the Python image from Docker Hub, like the official Python image from Docker Hub. I'm sure Yarrick could talk more about the official nature of that or not, but we've switched from using those images, and we're actually installing Python ourselves on to the Debian base images. Airflow exception. If you spent any time in the Airflow code base, you've probably seen Airflow exception littered all over the place. We kind of use it, well, a lot more than we probably should. So there's a concerted effort to not use it going forward with new code, and maybe even go through and replace some of the existing usages. I don't think this will really impact end users that much, but this is a kind of a dev direction that we're heading towards. On the language front for the 3.1 UI, there was some traffic about I'm probably going to butcher this, Catalan and simplified Chinese languages being added. And then we also kind of, based on some of these newer languages that have come up, clarified some of this acceptance criteria. So for example, we've kind of made the decision, Hungarian too, thanks, Yarrick. We've made the decision that it doesn't have to be like, if it's a language that people speak and we have an appropriate sponsor and people to maintain it, then it's something that we will accept, right? We're not trying to be political about what languages we take or don't take or whatnot. So yeah, more details on the specific new acceptance criteria on the dev list. Next slide, please. Cool. There is a thread that probably needs some attention from somebody at some point about making the task selection algorithm in the scheduler pluggable. We also had, oh, I think I put deadlines alerts twice. So there you go. Fruzy, you got a double shout out here from me. Um, there's a call for help on deadline alerts, helping to make the notifiers async. Um, oh, if you go back, sorry. Yeah. Yep. Thanks. From a day in the life of devs changes, we've switched away from pre-commit to prec. And we're also switching. I don't know if it's happened yet, Yark, but there's a lazy consensus that's passed to move away from using constraint files for dev environments and switching to UV lock. There's also a discussion around Valkey, which is a open source, I guess. How do I put it? A fork? I think it's actually a fork of Redis, and whether we should have that provider or not, whether we should have a provider that supports both products. So yeah, some discussions on that that are still ongoing. Next slide, please. Like normal, we had a lot of AIP traffic this last month. And so here's the second call out for the deadline alerts. Yeah, if you want to kind of help with the async support for those, then you can hop in and help. There was some discussion around the AIP 76 asset partitions, and specifically around like what we should support from an MVP or not. Um, there's a Hussein actually kind of wrote up another implementation idea, and so there's been a little bit of movement on what that should end up kind of looking like. 94 is kind of it's a continuation of an existing AIP in a lot of ways, but the conversations around should the commands that are in Airflow CTL only be in Airflow CTL, so we don't have to maintain two code paths. And then there's a couple AIPs that are really in draft mode still around supporting a read-only DB replica and moving the DAG processor and callbacks to use the execution API instead of having direct database access. Next slide. Thank you. I think this is my last one. So what do we have? What do we kind of have on deck? I mean, the biggest one, of course, is Airflow 3.1, which is coming very soon here. Should be available later this month. And then we also likely will have Airflow CTL released as well, which is I'm looking forward to that one for sure. And then we also have another provider wave that's being voted on currently. So if testing those providers out while they're still in the voting period, and we encourage you to do that and vote. And I think that's all I had. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Jed. We're all looking forward to 3.1. So no pressure, guys. Next up, I'm really excited to introduce you all to Jake Roach. He is the field data engineer at Astronomer, and he's going to be walking you all through our latest AIP 93 asset watermarks.
Cool. Thanks, Brianna. Yeah, and everything I say here, I'll also caveat with there's been in like the last 36 hours, there's been a little bit of a change in direction as to how we're thinking about this AIP. So I'll start with where our initial thinking was and then talk a little bit about where this is going. But Brianna, if you don't mind hitting the next slide. This AIP started with, back in April, May, June, one of my goals was to start to put together event-driven scheduling provider operators. They actually come in the form of triggers. I wanted folks to be able to do things like when a file lands in S3, trigger a DAG, or when a SQL query is executed and it meets a certain condition, right? Go ahead and trigger a DAG, or a file lands in external stage, whatever that is. However, I could not do this, right? And the reason for that was that event-driven scheduling really was designed with queue-based assets in mind. So this is kind of the initial design here. is I have an AWS SQSQ. This is really when Airflow 3.0 came out, the primary example that we were working with. And this is our architecture diagram here. So when a file lands in SQS, we actually have what's called an asset watcher in Airflow, and an asset watcher has a trigger. It's pulling that SQSQ when a message lands. It yields a trigger event, and it also deletes the message. From there, a DAG is triggered, and that's kind of the nature of what we've seen implemented so far for event-driven scheduling. Queue-based, we're able to delete that message. And then from there, trigger the DAG. Now, deleting that message is really something to keep in mind as we talk through the rest of this. Brianna, if you don't mind clicking to the next slide. So again, event-driven scheduling has really only been implemented for queue-based assets. SQS and Kafka are two of the big ones. I believe there might be one or two other PRs out there. Again, the workflow trigger pulls a message queue. If it's present, yields a trigger event. Now, messages being deleted is the basis of this, right? So when a message is deleted, it's no longer in the queue. The next time that my trigger fires, there is no message there, right? That message is gone. However, that's not really a viable pattern for other assets. So think about S3. If you want to trigger a DAG when a file lands in S3, I can't delete that file really, right? Maybe I could, but for a lot of data engineering teams, that's not a viable pattern. When a file lands in S3, I shouldn't be processing it and then deleting it. S3 is really a long-term object store. And so that's the constraint that we ran into. And Brianna, if you don't mind clicking to the next slide here. The situations that I'm mentioning, especially with S3, this is, in my opinion, one of the biggest ones and where we'll see the most use. These are what we call like incremental workloads, right? So where queue-based is a message landing, short to live, and it's deleted. Incremental is something like, hey, I have a bunch of files in S3, a new one lands, that's like my incremental event almost. I don't want to have to go back and process every single file in an S3 bucket every time that one lands. I only want to process the new ones. Again, you can kind of think about that as an incremental workload. Things like performing change data capture with Snowflake or any other relational database you might have, or micro batch ingestion from an API. This is a really common one I've seen a good bit. Which is you have like an updated field in an API, and you only want to pull records since the last time that you hit that API. You really don't want to retrieve all records from an API. So these are incremental workloads, and this is really what we haven't been able to implement yet in the open source project. We have not yet been able to figure this out, and really it's for one big reason. Brad, next slide if you don't mind. So here's the problem. There's really not a way to persist any sort of watermark. You can think of a watermark in the most traditional sense. You can think of it like the last time that something happened. It's a way to persist some sort of state. But the way we're thinking about it is like a last updated date or last pulled date, whatever that might be. Because of this, there's not a great way to create asset-driven tooling. Again, we don't want to process every record in a Snowflake table. We don't want to have to process every single file in the S3 store. So right now, this is kind of the problem that we're aiming to tackle, and that's where this AIP started. So there's been a couple of attempts at actually building triggers to be used for asset watching. Two of them have leveraged the variable model. Now, this has been somewhat successful. However, Karen Braganza actually made a pull request. Before she made this, you're not actually able to set variable from the trigger. So previously, you could run a variable.get from the trigger. However, you couldn't set it. So you couldn't update that watermark, which was quite tricky for folks, again, who wanted to do incremental workloads. So that was for Post. I believe there are two pull requests for Postgres that both tried to use that model. They're successful. However, it did require a little bit of work to get there. And we might talk about it later, but using that variable, it may conflict with other folks using variables, especially as we scale. And then this next pull request is actually one that I wrote. which was and spawned this AIP. So I wanted to write a trigger that said, hey, if a new file lands in S3, go ahead and yield a trigger event. And I tried to do that by persisting, it was like a last updated field in the class itself, in the instance of the class, or at the trigger instance. However, if that trigger dies or whatever have you, the trigger dies, then we run into the issue of I'm resetting all the way back to the beginning. So this is what's been tried so far. Again, these first two pull requests have been somewhat successful and have definitely offered us a great starting point, but it hasn't been a pattern that we've been able to scale to other triggers for asset watching. And then the one that I wrote below, the idea is okay, but it doesn't really work. So here's the proposed architecture that we're thinking about with this AIP. And again, S3 is the example that I really like to use just because of how widespread it is across the community. And also you can substitute, if you're an Azure user, it's Azure Storage Blob, or if you're GCP, it's GCS, whatever object store that you might like. But the workflow is a little bit different here. So I still have my asset watcher, which is running my trigger. Now what my trigger is doing is it's saying, okay, scan my files in S3 and only return those that have changed since my last watermark. So my trigger needs to read somehow from the metadata database. Somehow it needs to figure out what that last watermark is. Then what it can do is it can scan S3 for any files that have been changed since then. Great. If there's files, we'll trigger the DAG. If there's not, I'm still going to update my watermark. So that way, the next time that my trigger runs, I know, okay, I don't need to scan everything. This is my last watermark. Again, makes it easy. Incremental processing is kind of the name of the game here. Now, you see I have a green circle around API reading the watermark. In the last 36 hours, again, this is probably going to be the biggest lift as part of this AIP, is how are we actually going to be able to interact with the metadata database. With the introduction of the Task SDK, the trigger does not have direct access to the metadata database. So it'll probably be somewhat of a variable model-like implementation. But this is where the majority of this AIP is probably going to be focused, is figuring out, okay, how can we read this watermark? And from here, once we have that in place, we can actually use it for more than just asset watching. It can become somewhat more of a general state store to be used in Airflow by other tasks, sensors, other triggers, that sort of thing. But again, this model, it's quite simple. It relies on us, though, being able to read a watermark, so we're not processing a whole entire bucket of data every time, or a whole entire table in a relational data store. So pros of this proposed pattern. This is kind of like an Airflow ONIC approach, right? We've already got something very similar in place with variables, with the variable model. And XCOM's similar. It's not the same thing, but again, it's a similar model. And we're gonna make it very intuitive for trigger, sensor, operator authors, right? So if you've already used variable before, this new approach is going to be very, very similar. You're not going to have to learn anything new. It's going to feel intuitive. It's going to be quite extensible and pluggable. By pluggable, what I mean is, with XCOMs and variables, we have the ability to bring our own backend. You can bring your secrets backend, that's for variables and connections, or for XCOMs, you can bring an object store as a backend. And I want to have the same thing when we think about this for asset watching and more of a general state store. And it's not going to be a crazy code change. And I say that now, I'm sure there'll be tons of complexity as we dig into it. But again, we have these patterns that are already in place that we can work off of, and it's going to provide a really nice starting point. Now, these cons are tied to the original AIP. Again, this has shifted. Right now, the nature of writing asset watchers is that you have to author a trigger that you tie to an asset watcher that you tie to an asset. And the trigger is actually pretty much completely independent of the asset. That's a challenge that we've run into for when you define the trigger, getting a little more technical, but you don't actually pass any information about the asset into it. So that's going to be something that we'll want to work out. Again, the original name for this model is asset watermark. It's probably going to move to something more generic like watermark or state, process state, whatever that is. But with the task SDK, we'll have to author a way to access that from something like the trigger, which doesn't have access to the metadata database. And then my biggest concern actually is this being misused. What I mean by that is for folks who are trying to, rather than capturing a watermark, they're trying to dump tons and tons of data in there or use it like Redis, like a key value store outside of how we're thinking about it. I think there's ways that we can handle this, but definitely something that's top of mind for me. So next steps, this is the biggest one, is continuing to refine what the implementation pattern looks like. We're going to also start to identify any blockers or other changes that are needed before we can go ahead with this work. From there, we can begin initial development and draft PRs. I've created a draft PR that's absolutely going to be scrapped, but it provides a nice way to look at things in more of a concrete way. Of course, we'll test and gather feedback and repeat that process. It's not going to be a one iteration, right? We'll have multiple iterations. And then from there, once we've developed, tested, gotten to a good point, we'll start to document and plan for a release. Again, as we invite the whole entire community to help lead the effort on this. I've been working closely with Daniel Standish. He's been a great mentor as I've worked through this. He actually has AIP 30, which is something quite similar around state persistence. But any members of the community are welcome to help. I'm on the Airflow Slack. Any messages are good messages, and we can start to work together on this.
Awesome.
And I think that's all for me. If there's any questions, please, happy to answer those.
Thank you so much, Jake. Really appreciate that. That was an awesome overview. If anyone has any questions for Jake, please feel free to drop them in the chat and we'll address them as they come in. And now next up, we're moving into our PRs of the month. We're going to start off with Raul Vatz, who's going to cover add filtering support to audit log view. Whenever you're ready, Raul.
Thank you, Brianna. Hey, good morning, good evening, everyone. So we'll be talking about adding filtering support to audit log view. Next slide, please. So before diving into this, I would like to talk about why we need that. So let's say a user migrate from Airflow 2 to Airflow 3. And in that transition, we have lost many of the filter capabilities which were earlier provided by the class cap builder. So essentially, currently, I think everyone is able to see the slides, right? I see some message that someone is not able to see the slides. So if anyone can confirm, okay, great. Let me start. I think people are able to. So yeah, continuing to that. So with this transition, we have lost some of the filters which are very much required as with the huge volume of data, it would be very inconvenient to search for the data on their data pipelines. So that's what the need for this audit filter. Next slide, please. Okay, now the solution is to ensure that whatever filter capabilities which we had in Airflow 2, we just restore them like they were and also try to build on top of it, maybe add additional as well. And doing that is twofold process. So we identified what all screens we had filters with and what all filters we need in Airflow 3 and try to see that what screens we need to implement these. From a development point of view, there are two places where we need to ensure whatever filter capabilities we are trying to add, are they already covered in our backend in the REST APIs? And if not, then fill those gap in and then also update with the UI implementation. One thing we are ensuring with this is we are making sure that whatever screen we are working with filters are consistent across all the views so that all the pages are consistent. Next slide, please. Now, this audit log is one sub item of the meta ticket in which we are trying to address all the screens. With audit log, I feel like there is more pain because as you know that many users have multiple DAGs with multiple runs, right? And everything is generated. Like huge amount of event logs, and essentially with event logs, I feel like it might be not having filters on this page might be ensuring that like whoever is trying to find the events, right, it would be very difficult because they need to go to different pages and try to figure out what log they might need to do. So adding filters to this, I believe, will make life easier in many ways. Next slide, please. So in audit log implementation, right now we have 8 filter options, starting from event type, user, DAG, and these are the different filters by which people can search their event from. From the implementation point of view, most of the filters for audit log were already there in the backend. The only thing which we noticed was that the pattern search was not implemented in the API, so we had to just implement that. Yeah, I think that's about the audit log. I would also like to just give a quick demonstration. Maybe I can share my screen quickly and just give a quick glimpse of what we have now. So I'm just sharing the screen. Okay, I hope you're able to see my screen. Yeah, so I have my local instance up on the Airflow main. Let me just minimize this. Let me just go to the audit log page. So yeah, now these are the filters we were just talking about. So we have filters for dates, event, and so on. And let me just try to add a date for which we might not have any events. So it filters it out. And maybe for any event type, we can just filter by event type with user now, and the partial pattern match is also working. Same with the DAG ID. So yeah, these are the filters. I think there is one more screen. We have also ensured that these filters are implemented in the DAG view. So whatever filters we have in the main audit log page are available here as well, so that people can try to search them on the DAG view as well. So yeah, that's pretty much about the audit log filter implementation. As I said, that this is one of sub item of the larger effort. So we would have more filtering work ongoing, which would ensure that transition from Airflow 2 to Airflow 3 is amazing. And I'm pretty sure it will make the adoption very easy. Yeah, that's pretty much it about from mine, Brianna.
Thank you so much, Raul. That was an awesome demo. Appreciate you doing that. Does
Thank
anyone
you.
have any questions? If so, please drop them in the chat for Raul or just tell him how awesome that was. And we'll move on to our next PR. I'd like to welcome Guanming Chu to the stage. He is a software engineering intern at Quid, and he contributed Add Gantt chart view this month.
So hi everyone. My name is Guanming Chou. I'm from Taiwan, and today I'll be go through my PR 51776, which adds back the Gantt chart view. So the problem we are solving here is really simple. When Apple moved from version 2 to version 3, the Gantt chart was lost. That turned out to be a big issue. User lost a really helpful tool, and so without it, debugging the time-related issue become really harder, and like bottlenecks were not really obvious, and people no longer had a clear view report to check the task performance or the execution order. So our goal was really clear. So to bring back the Gantt chart. And so next slide, please. Thanks. And how do we do it? Basically, we rebuild the Gantt chart using our current React stick. We integrate the chart.js with the chart UI to make it interactive, and we make sure it fits smoothly with the rest of the current UI, like the grid view and the info pane. So next slide, please. Okay. So we, of course, we ran into some challenges while we are in implementation. So first one is the performance issue. The UI will be frozen because of the UI will be frozen with the deck have the 100 of the task because chart.js render everything inside a HTML5 canvas, and when it re-rendered multiple times, the browser couldn't handle it. So to fix it, we need to minimize the unnecessary renders using like React hook use memo. We only re-render what was essential, which did improve the efficiency much. So the second one is the layout issue. We have to decide where the chart should live, right side or left side. At first, we place it on the right side like F2, but because the right pane used a responsive web design, which means it would dynamically change the height to fit the different screen width. So it could break the alignment between the Gantt chart and the grid view. So we think it is very crucial. And so eventually we reached the consensus to move it to the left side, which we think it is a better option. So we also add the statement management hook to keep alignment and selection in sync between the Gantt chart and grid views. So next slide, please. So here is what these PR include. We restored the Gantt chart just like F2, and also grid view and Gantt view now stay fully in sync. And the third one is we support real-time status update to make it more useful. So next slide, and this slide will be demo. So I need to share my screen. Okay. Share. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, here's the new Gantt chart. Each row is a task, and the bar shows when it started and how long it ran. You can easily spot the order, overlap, and the bottlenecks. Group can be expand and collapse. Like also you can click some task, and it highlight and sync with the grid view. And if we trigger new deck run, the Gantt chart will update in real time, so you can immediately see the task starting and finishing and how they lined up. And you can see task instance. Let's wait. Oh, okay. Take some times.
That's okay. We have time.
Okay. I'm not sure is that my computer's issue. Oh, it starts running. Yes. So you can see there's several tasks running, and if we mark it as failed, and we can see sometimes. Okay. And we can see start and show the right state and start time and with the right tooltips. So here is the demo, and let me stop my sharing. Okay. So what's next? Looking ahead, here's what we plan to improve. The first one is we need to add the crosshair harvest effect between Gantt and grid, since currently it's only sync the selection effect. And also, I re-implement the tooltip using tracker UI to keep consistent and efficiency. And the third one is to keep pushing the performance optimization, since it still have some issue to collect multiple task group at once. So this, and the fourth is continue fixing bugs as we go. So that is. Thanks for your listening.
Thank you so much. That was an awesome presentation, and congrats. Check out
Thank
the
you.
chats. People are really thrilled about it. I think I have somebody who is drawing on the presentation, so if they could please stop. I'm not sure how to remove that, but please don't do that. Oh, okay. I'm gonna have to fix this. One moment, please. Okay, thank you so much. If it happens again, I'll have to kick you out. All right, our final PR. Really excited to introduce you all to Jay Chen Lee. He is at NYU MSIS and is a web developer. Thank you so much for presenting Ad Calendar View for DAG today. So much UI. Oh, Jay, we're having a little bit of audio issues. You sounded great when you joined the call when we did our audio check, but now it's a little wonky. It's the same. Perhaps you need to remove your AirPods. Still the same. But luckily today we're going pretty fast, so we have time.
So how about now?
Yeah, much better.
Okay. So hi everyone. I'm Justin Lee, and today I'm going to share the new calendar view for DAG. And next slide, please. First of all, let's look at a grid view. We can see the recent rounds, right? So this would be easy for user to spot the recent history. But next slide, please. What if we have more than 100 rounds? So it would be hard for the user to spot to see the whole picture, to spot the whole changes. So to solve this problem, let's look at the next slide. We can the problem is that the user might think, oh, how has my DAG running recently in the past few months or even past few years? And the reason I'm also curious about, I made a version change, and did it cause any new problems? I think these are the important questions that would be asked by the user. So next slide, please. Let me introduce the new calendar view. As you can see, this is a heat map that can show user the recent runs in daily view or hourly view. And in this picture, you can see we can show the total runs and the field runs. Oh, by the way, I'm using the mock data, so we have the whole year. And let's look at the next slide. And in the hourly view, we can see the execution status in each day and wrapped by weeks, and we can switch between months. So let me show this in live demo for better understanding. Okay. Am I sharing?
Yes.
Okay, so let's look at the daily view, and we can see that we can hover on each cell to see the tooltip to about the status of each day. And also we can see the fail runs, and that's switch between years and back to hourly view. We can see that if the task is scheduled and is likely to execute in a certain time, so this would be how it looks like. Yeah, and yeah, that's pretty much of it. So glad to share here, and I hope that users will like this new UI change. So, and if there's any follow-up question about these calendar implementation, please let me know. And I'll provide follow-up PRs. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jay. That was awesome. Love all the UI updates. We had a question from Ravi Singh that came in through Q&A. It was, are there any Nix packages for Airflow 3? And Jed answered, not that the PMC release, no. So thank you for that question. If anyone has any other questions, feel free to drop them into the chat and we will address them as they come in. Okay, so I only have one quick but awesome community spotlight for you all today, and then we'll actually get out a little early. So exciting news. On October 15th and 16th, we will have a free virtual version of Airflow Summit called Online Reconnect. I will share that link with you all in just a moment at the end of the call. Or if someone wants to drop it in the chat now, please feel free. And it's going to feature some of the most popular talks from the Airflow Summit, as well as some of the speakers who were unable to travel to Airflow Summit to make sure that everyone in the community is appreciated and heard and featured at this conference. Thank you. Kenton has shared the link to Online Reconnect. So we're really excited to showcase this event this year. A few years back during COVID, we did Airflow Summit entirely virtual. So now this is a nice sort of in between for those who want the in-person. You can still come to Seattle October 7th through 9th. That's about a month away. So if you haven't bought your ticket yet, definitely recommend purchasing your ticket to in-person Airflow Summit if you can make the trip. And for those of you who cannot, register to Online Reconnect and we'll see you online. So if anyone has any questions about that, please feel free to drop them into the chat. And then, as always, just a few friendly community reminders here. Make sure you're in Airflow Slack if you're not. That's the center of activity for this community, and it's where you can get updates on anything that we talked about today. Also, make sure that you join Meetup. That's where you can see all of our online events as well, and in person as well. So any event that's hosted by the Airflow community, you can see in Meetup, and I'll drop the link in just a moment. And then make sure you subscribe to the Airflow monthly newsletter. It goes out on the first Monday of every month and is a summary of all the happenings in Airflow. And then finally, everything that was talked about today, from Jed giving an overview of the project to all the PRs, etc., that is covered on the dev list. So if you want to stay in the know of what's happening day to day in the Airflow project, definitely recommend joining that dev list. Somebody just asked in the chat, Martin, how do you register for the summit? The register button goes to the ticket page for the in-person. I think one of the summit organizers, I believe Mara, is on this call, so she would be able to address that question. Oh, I think she might have dropped. I'll look into that for you and get back to you. My suggestion would be to go to that page and see if there's an option in the ticket purchase options for Online Reconnect. I would suspect that that's where you would be able to register for the online event. But if not, we'll definitely make sure that you get a note updating you on that. So yeah, could also be a bug as well, but we'll get that addressed for you right away. Let me get these links shared with you all before I let you all go. Yeah, of course, Martin. Okay. Here we go, sharing some links. Yes, look at the page in 20 minutes, come back in 20, and we will make sure that we get that bug fixed for you. All right, everyone. I think that's it for today. Gonna let you go a couple of minutes early, but thank you all again to our presenters and for everyone who joined and listened in. Love doing these town halls, love connecting with you every month. If anyone wants to present on next month's, just shoot me a note in Airflow Slack, and I'm more than happy to chat with you. All right, everyone have a great day. Thank you so much.